Underdog Fantasy is the fastest-growing fantasy app and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Just jump on UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app, draft your team, and that's it. And if drafts aren't your thing, they also have a pick'em game where you can win 20 times your money in a single night. Use promo code RADIO, and Underdog will double your first deposit when you sign up with up to $100 in bonus cash. Deposit $100, get $100 free. That's promo code RADIO. Terms and conditions apply.
The most famous family in the world has a new home. That's right, the Kardashians are now on Hulu. Go behind the scenes and stream the all-new Hulu original series, The Kardashians. Get an all-access pass inside the lives of the billion-dollar businesswomen and cultural icons as they start a new chapter of life and love. Catch new episodes of The Kardashians on Thursdays, only on Hulu.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode is going back a few years, talking to John Murray. Kurt was doing this interview. This is a Throwback Thursday episode about climbing Mount Rainier. That is a huge bucket list item for a lot of us that listen to this show. And we're going to listen to John really explain like in detail the adventure and the what to expect when climbing that mountain. It's around the time, it's going to be soon, the time of year where you can climb it. It's a true mountaineering mountain, so it's pretty cool to have that in the lower 48. And if you didn't know, I mentioned this on Monday's episode that I'm going to be going on tour with Journey to 100, the documentary that's out with Athletic Brewing. If you want to check that out, we're going to be going to Denver next weekend, April 23rd. Come hang out, come say hi, come watch the movie. You'll hear me talk a little bit. And then the next weekend we'll be in Portland, and the following we'll be in Seattle. So please come out to one of those if you're in those areas. Details in the show notes. I'd love to have you out, and we're giving away 2 tickets to each location. We still have some of those available, so reach out. You will get a free ticket to one of those screenings. So let me know, and I'm trying to think which ones are still open. Just email me if you're interested and you're in one of those cities. And what's cool about today's episode too is we're talking about climbing Mount Rainier, and Jason, one of the film we made was about Jason Hardrath's journey to 100 fastest known times. And he did that by climbing the 100 highest mountains in Washington State as his 100th fastest known time. So he had 99. What does he want to do for his 100th? Climb 100 mountains. And one of those mountains is Mount Rainier. So you're hearing John on today's episode explain what that is, like what climbing one of those mountains is, which is just crazy. He did 99 other mountains in one big trip. And not only that, Jason has infinity looped Mount Rainier, which he has the FKT for. Look up what that means. That is insane. It's basically climbing it twice in one day, and making a complete circumnavigation of the route itself too. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. Crazy stuff. And yeah, reach out to me, or go ahead and buy tickets if you'd like to attend.
Hello and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Kurt Linville. Today I have John Murray with us, and John grew up with his dad in the Navy, traveled around a lot, and it gave him an opportunity to try a lot of different things, and he's a guy after my own heart. He loves adventure sports of all kinds. He is a backpacker. He loves mountain biking, snowboarding. He likes to do freestyle jet ski on a stand-up jet ski. He sails. He scuba dives, spearfishing, mountaineering, hunting, rock climbing, motorcycle riding. I mean, if it's adventurous, John does it. Today, we're going to focus primarily on mountaineering because he did Mount Rainier, and I want to hear that story. So, John, welcome to the program.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me, Kurt.
John, you live in a great place for adventure sports. You said you're about an hour south of Seattle, so that Pacific Northwest coast up there is amazing with the Cascades and the volcanoes, and man, you've got the ocean, you've got the mountains, you've got everything. What's it like?
Yeah, it is awesome. I mean, typically when we're trying to decide where to go, we basically have the Olympics to the west or the Cascades to the right. We got all kinds of coastal waters to sail and navigate. We got the rainforest. You can hunt over there in the Hoh rainforest, and we have, of course, the big mountain, Mount Rainier, and then we got Baker up north, and then we got Mount St. Helens down south, and of course Mount Adams. And so I've been up to pretty much all those mountains, and I've hiked in both mountain ranges extensively, and I just love living up here. I just enjoy it.
My son asked me just this week, how tall was Mount St. Helens before it blew its top? And I didn't look it up. I started to and got distracted. But do you know? What's the difference?
Geez, yeah, I think because I climbed that one in December. It was like 8,900, I think is where it's at right now. And before that, I think it was like around 11,000.
So it lost about 2,000 feet.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But I'd have to look that up myself too.
It sounds about right. I tell you what, I remember when that happened, and it blew my mind. That was such a huge event. It's just crazy. I'll bet it's beautiful now, though.
It is, yeah. It's I think it happened in the 1980, if I remember right. And I was born in 83, so I think I missed that one. But my father-in-law, he was around when all that was going on, and he was actually going to school in Central Washington. And he said that it was during the day, he was just out there, in the middle of the day playing, I don't know, shooting basketball or something, and it just went pitch black as the ash and clouds rolled in. And it was just as dark as night in the middle of the day, and he just said it was so odd.
Wow. Yeah, I watched it on television, and I was, I don't know, about 12 years old or something like that. So it was a major event, and it's really cool to see how nature has recovered since then. Mm-hmm. And what just amazes me is what a quick change it was to the landscape. So, but
yeah,
let's
absolutely.
talk a little bit more about some of these adventure sports. So, before we dive into Rainier, why do you backpack? Why do you climb?
Well, so yeah, my parents were, my dad was in the Navy, and so I had 3 other siblings, and basically anytime we moved from one state to another, we would take our camping trailer and we would basically hit all these campgrounds on the way. And so I just loved, going around the campground and playing and, making spears and exploring, with my brothers and sisters. And I always liked camping, but we never got really out of the campsite. And I always wanted to, you look and see all these guys up in these mountains, and I always wanted to be that guy and kind of experience that. And so it wasn't until I was old enough and, could kind of drive myself to the mountains and, go buy some of my own gear I needed, that I started to do that. And man, that was a learning curve and a half. So, basically I was bringing camping gear to the mountains, and that was a huge mistake.
Little too heavy, not quite right.
Right. I mean, the sleeping bag is as big as a backpack, and everything weighs 5 to 10 pounds a piece. So,
right.
yeah, I had to learn a lot, and I didn't read any books on it. I just wanted to do it, and I just thought, I've done camping, so, okay, well, I'll bring a little stove, and I'll bring a sleeping bag, and I'll bring this and that, and I had it all wrong. So that was a big lesson for me in that area.
Well, it sounds to me like you've kind of turned into a gear junkie. You mentioned that it's a real passion of yours now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I go in my garage right now, I got, down sleeping bags, synthetics, mummies, rectangulars. I got different degree sleeping bags, different weight sleeping bags for different, downfill amounts from 650 to, 950, and different stoves and all kinds of pots and pans and titanium and stainless steel and aluminum and, different types of packs from ultra lightweight to mountaineering packs to, just everything that I think if you're a gear junkie, you'd probably have like me.
That's fun. We don't dive deep into gear a lot on the show, although we do like to get some recommendations from our guests. But gear is part of the fun, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Absolutely. And I want to tell our guests here, the way that I met John actually is he bought one of our natural fuel backpacking stoves that he had been using, and he had a question about it, so he had emailed us, and we started talking, and next thing you know, I said, man, you got to be on our show, because you're a true adventure man. So that's how we met. So, John, you've been using a stove that we discontinued, the 180 VL, right?
Yeah, right. That's correct.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to throw in this advertisement here, John. The 180 VL was about 6 ounces, and it was a natural fuel stove, so you could burn twigs, grass, leaves. It folded up into a case that was about 3 inches by 6 inches and really light. We replaced that one with the 180 Flame that you hear us talking about sometimes, which has similar weight and dimensions, but it has a better design for airflow, so it burns better and packs down into an even smaller case, about 3 by 4 inches, and it can fit in a small pocket. So those are some of the things that we at 180 TAC offer, and of course you can find those by going to adventuresportspodcast.com or to 180tac.com. But John is one of the customers, so thanks for doing that, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy that product, and definitely was looking for an alternative to just if you're bringing a canister stove and you're trying to save some fuel, to be able to have something that you could basically cook on. So that definitely fit the bill.
Yeah, that's fun. But here's a question for you: if you're packing a pack to go climb Mount Rainier, what are you packing?
What am I packing? Well, I'm packing a lot of things. So you're going to incorporate basically you're going to be in definitely cold weather. So you have to have all your cold weather gear. You're going to be on glacier if you're up on Rainier. So you're going to need all your basically harnesses, your ice axe, your crampons, basically all your ice and glacier gear, your glacier glasses. You're going to need a climbing helmet. You're going to need goggles. You're going to need the carabiners and the prussics and the rope for a crevasse rescue crevasse rescue. And then you're going to need, of course, all the food, all the calories you're going to burn. I learned that you don't burn around 6,000 calories a day, but more around 12,000 calories a day. So I was definitely short on food supply there. But you're going to be bringing your white gas stove for turning snow into water, and you're going to be bringing, of course, your probably your heavy down sleeping bag, your mountaineering tent. Everything is just going to be heavy, and you guys just got to lug that up the mountain until you can get to base camp. And so that's just basically some of the gear you're going to bring in a nutshell. And I could go much more into detail on that, but yeah, you're going to have that gear basically to get you up there and down.
One of the reasons why I ask that question is because it illustrates that this isn't just a mountain climb like we would normally do in Colorado. So people that climb the Colorado 14ers, it's generally a day hike. They don't have to take all the gear for camping overnight. And in addition to that, they're generally not on glaciers. So leave the ice axe, the crampons, the ropes, the carabiners, the prusik, all that stuff can stay home on almost all the mountains.
Yeah, and that adds quite a bit of weight to your pack when you're thinking about bringing any of that stuff.
So the 14ers in Colorado, most of them are simply a hike. There are several, I would say probably 20%, where you're going to use your hands and feet, but you don't have to rope up, although it is advisable to rope up on some of them. But that's what a lot of people think about when they think of climbing mountains in Colorado. Rainier is a different story. Rainier is when, okay, this is a true expedition climb. And once you get all the gear and the knowledge to do Rainier, then you can advance to a lot of other mountains.
Yeah, it's very technical, and once you get that one under your belt, a lot of the other ones seem to be a lot more simplistic as far as planning goes and logistics, and your confidence goes way up in climbing these other mountains that aren't as technical. They just kind of feel more like a breeze. So I'm glad to have had that one under my belt now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've not done Rainier. It is on my do list. I'd like to do it someday. But that's why I wanted to have you come and tell us about it. Before we dive into the specifics, though, it sounds like you love your adventure sports. Why would you encourage people to climb Rainier?
Oh, man. Well, yeah, Rainier is I don't know if I would encourage people to climb Rainier. I mean, it's quite dangerous. So as long as you can mitigate that danger with all the experience and knowledge that you're going to learn all along the way to getting to that point, or going with a guided service, I mean, just the preparation to being able to do that, for one, you got to be physically fit. So, I mean, that's going to tie into the rest of your life as far as, not everything else you do in life requires you to be physically fit. So I think that's a bonus. And, a lot of the stuff as far as being able to rescue people, tying knots are always useful, whether you're taking something down to the dump or you're tying something for your kid outside, like a rope swing, you're going to use the right knot. There's a lot to that. And then, of course, it's going to teach you a lot about, I would say, probably world travel, because you're having to bring select gear, and you have some very specific knowledge, whether it's about helping somebody out medically or survival. It's just going to help. I would think if you were out and about in the world, or some sort of natural disaster happened, you're going to have that skill set, that survival skill set, that's not really in the all-American sports or in other hobbies that people are doing. So I think it really comes full circle, and just kind of helps you out in all areas of your life.
I think that's true for adventure sports in general, and it probably doesn't matter so much what the sport is, but it gives life an added dimension. And, there's all the skills that we learn that translate back to life. But I think the biggest thing that it seems to be the common element for all of these sports is what we learn about ourselves, our confidence levels, how to manage in difficult situations, and, things like that go back to everyday life and just make a huge difference in how we live each day.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and especially when we're on these technical mountains, if you're playing basketball with your friends and you get hurt, that's fine. But I mean, if you get hurt on these big mountains, you might be facing life or death, situations where you got to make judgment calls, and that's really going to be, paramount in, your decision making, and that's where I think the critical decision making skill sets come into play. And I think that's stuff that you learn, and I think it's just far superior to, again, like I said, all those other sports that you're doing, because you're trying to win, but it's not necessarily life or death at certain times.
Right. Yeah. The urgent care and the car to get you there are not just in the driveway and around the corner. Right.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Get a minor injury could be very problematic, and can be an emergency up on those mountains, as opposed to getting hurt on just a regular trail or something like that.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people forget that until enough experience it teaches them that lesson. I have quit taking as many risks when I'm deep into the wilderness, just because, if I'm close to help, I don't mind getting hurt. But if I get hurt 7 or 8 or 10 miles in, wow, that's a different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, hey, will you tell us a story about an amazing mountaineering experience that really hooked you on it, said, yeah, this is what I want to do? So what was the weather like? What were you doing? What was the day like? And tell us how that impacted you.
I would say what got me hooked was the first time I was trying to go out and do an overnighter in the snow. And I was in college, and I was over at Washington State University, and one of the mountains over there is Moscow Mountain, which is in Idaho. And this one actually was going well, and then I think it went really wrong because, I looked over a couple pieces of gear, and I had done a couple that I did that turned out very well, and so then I decided, okay, let's try the snow. So it was probably 5 degrees out during the day, so it was pretty cold, and the elevation was probably around 5,000 feet. And I don't remember if this was the east or west summit, but it has 2 different summits. And I went up with a group of guys, and I think there's just three other guys, and we all had one-man tents, and we all had our own packs, and we basically set up camp. And I had a negative 5-degree sleeping bag, and I was very proud of that because I couldn't afford anything, and I thought this synthetic negative 5-degree sleeping bag was just going to be awesome in the snow conditions. So I set it up, and I didn't have a sleeping pad, so there's no basically protection between my sleeping bag and the ground or the snow. And so, we get ready to hunker down. We try to build a fire on the snow, which sinks in like 4 feet and burns out. Finally, we go to bed, and I am freezing. I just cannot stop shivering, and I don't know why I'm so cold, other than my butt and my shoulders are so cold. So I take my gloves off, and I stick them underneath my butt to kind of prop me off the snow a little bit. And then that's when I realized, holy cow, I don't have a sleeping pad. And I guess they are a necessity in this type of terrain. And so when I came down from that climb, I was like, okay, time to get a sleeping pad. I don't even think I even had a sleeping pad at the time, but definitely made an investment in that. And after I had done that climb, I liked being out in the environment and being, in the peace and quiet, and being just with your buddies or whoever you're with, and just taking it back like 100 years in technology, so to speak. So it just was a great experience in the fresh air and being able to explore and being able to use some of those skill sets that you don't always get to use in everyday life. And I think that one really got me hooked and wanted me to just keep pressing on and doing more and more and more.
You know what I like about your answer there, John? And it's one that I've not heard from a guest yet. You alluded to it opened up a world of learning. You realized there's a lot more to this. I should know about this, and there's other things I'm going to learn, and that was what was kind of exciting then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would say any climb I do, it's definitely a learning experience. It's not just, okay, well, I've done, certain climbs in certain mountains. I got it under my belt, because the weather's always different. The group's always different. Everything changes. So you're always learning and you're always getting better. And that's what I really like. It's just sort of the never-ending quest of excellence.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
You know what's funny about this? Here's just another example. I've been doing winter camping for, 20 years. And we do snow caves. We've done just, 4-season tents. We do all sorts of things. We've skied in. We've snowshoed in. Regardless, there's so many variations of ways to do it. But it wasn't until one of my more recent trips that I heated up water and poured it in my water bottle and took it into my sleeping bag with me.
Oh, yeah, no, I've definitely done that.
I don't know why I went 20 years before I tried that trick. Holy cow.
I don't know. I mean, that happens. I think that happens to everybody, though. You're just out and about and you have somebody else in the group and you see them do something different and you're like, hey, I wish I would have known about that 20 years ago.
Exactly right. Man, what a difference that makes. So there's a great tip. Do you have other tips or tricks that people should know about for mountaineering or winter camping or things like that?
Well, gosh, my sister had a really good quote. She said, pack light, you'll be cold at night for winter camp. But for all camps, I don't know. I guess the biggest thing that I've ever done to make the trip more enjoyable was just weighing everything. Then you kind of really know what one object weighs and whether or not, okay, well, could I use a different object to accomplish that? Or would this piece of equipment accomplish two different tasks? And so you start making those decisions in ounces and pounds, you're basically going to end up having a lighter pack. And there's a pro and con to that, of course, which is, the lighter the pack, the easier the trip is, but, your skills are going to be required to make that camp successful. Now, if you got a really heavy pack, the trip itself might not be that great, but you're going to be the guy at campsite who's got his own chair, his own hammock, his own tent, and he's got his radio, and he's got everything. But, he was struggling all the way up the mountain. So there's sort of that trade-off. But yeah, I would just say weighing everything. That was one of the big things I learned to try to make the trips more enjoyable.
So I kind of think that most backpackers have the one thing that's kind of heavy, but they say, no, this one's worth it. I'm bringing it anyway. What is that for you?
Oh, wow. What would that be? I've pretty much tried to slash everything because I'll change my hikes. Like I might go for a hike and I'll say, I'm gonna do a hammock backpacking trip this time. So of course, if you do the hammock, you're bringing the underquilt and of course the top quilt. So that's a little bit heavier than bringing maybe just a tarp and just a sleeping bag with a sleeping pad. But I don't know. I don't know what my one heavy piece of gear is. I have so much different gear to select from. So I kind of make these sort of challenges for myself, whether I'm going to do a backpacking trip or I'm going to do just a bushcraft trip where we're going to bring minimal gear and we're going to have to make some sort of natural shelter, or we're going to go and we're going to bring, full on gear and just have a, really cozy campsite because we're bringing our wives out or something like that. So it changes all the time. I couldn't say what that one heavy piece of gear would be.
Yeah, no, it's something to think about. For me, it's been the bed pad, and you can sleep on the ground without a pad in the summer, not in the winter, but and you save some weight and stuff like that. But for me, I thought, you know what, a good night's rest goes a long way. I'm willing to carry the extra weight for that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I would say because I got different thicknesses and the foam pads and the inflatable pads and. I guess I include that as just sort of my core gear because I love having a good sleep. That's what I'm up in the mountains. I'm enjoying myself. I want to sleep well. I'm not trying to have a rock in my side, but I guess that I could agree with that. And I have a pad that weighs about 2 pounds, and it's 4 inches thick, and it's cozy as could be. So I don't know if I'd want to give that one up all the time.
That sounds nice. Well, you know what? Let's get into Rainier specifically. We touched on it, but tell us what a climb up Rainier is like.
Okay, so my climb was probably different for other people who may have climbed it or might want to climb it. So just to start out, I was in the hospital for a week with the runs. I had drank bad water. I lost about 10 pounds. And my buddy called me when I was in the hospital. He says, "Hey, you want to climb Rainier in a month?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." So after I get out of the hospital, 3 weeks from then, we basically started the climb. Didn't train hardly at all for it. I was basically trying to get my weight back up. And all I could do was stretch and kind of get limber, and that's all I really did. So the climb itself, I live about 2 hours away from the mountain and basically packed all my own gear from all my own knowledge. And then my buddy, who had climbed it 5 times previous, he came over and he kind of checked all my gear out and made sure I had everything I needed and wasn't missing anything. And so we had it packed up and off we went. So we started out at Paradise. We climbed it in September, at the end of September. So the weather was phenomenal. It was a really hot year that year. And so they had a lot more snow melt. And you basically start out at Paradise, and you gain about 5,000 feet elevation over the course of 5 miles. And you basically are hiking up to Camp Muir. And a lot of people will do that as a day hike. They'll go up, they'll come down and, eat lunch up top and ski down or walk back down, what have you. And of course, when you're going to climb the mountain, you're bringing your mountaineering pack. And my pack at the time, I was trying to incorporate some ultra lightweight techniques into that scenario. And so my pack weight ended up being 55 pounds. And we were climbing in just shorts and a t-shirt with our mountaineering boots on, going up to Camp Muir. And we got up there around, 1 o'clock, I think. We were just kind of taking our time. The thing about the mountain, which I really hated and didn't want to really convert to, was you have to go to bed very early because you have to get up about midnight to start the climb. And when you go out backpacking, I just want to enjoy myself. That's my day to sleep in up on the mountains. I don't have any sort of specific criteria. I got to get up super early to make the next, the next target mile or whatnot. So I'm going out there to enjoy myself. So that was a hard one to do. But needless to say, we get up there, we're setting our camp up. And when there's not snow hazard, there's rock hazard on that mountain. So the fact that there was little snowpack that year, the mountain's always moving. There was always rocks falling, and you would see it. They would be close to you. You'd hear it at night. And it was a little unnerving. So basically, Camp Muir, we set up. We're, taking our snow, making water, eating, getting ready for bed. I think we go to bed around 7 p.m. Our plan was to get up about midnight or so, start, cooking our food and making water and, start getting your cold weather gear on and getting your summit pack on, get your harness on, get clipped into the ropes, have your crevasse rescue prussics ready, have that tucked away in your pockets, have your headlamp on, you got your mountaineering climbing helmet on, you have your ice axe in hand, and it's all lanyard to you. Your gloves are lanyard onto your hands because, God forbid you take your glove off at some point and it blows away. That would be a very bad situation to be in. So everything's pretty much clipped in to you. Even your pack is clipped onto you. So if you take it off, it's still clipped into your harness. So we get up about 1 a.m, I think, and we start cooking and getting ready. And, you look up at night and there's a bunch of other guided tours going up, and it just looks like ants in darkness just going up this mountain. The group size, it was just myself, Jeff, and George. So there's only 3 of us. And you do need a permit to climb past Muir. So, of course, we had already had that. So we're all geared up, and the weather was there was basically no wind. It was perfect conditions on Muir. And we basically start making our way from Camp Muir to the Ingraham Flats Glacier. So, of course, as soon as you leave Muir, you better be roped in. Jeff was the lead climber, so he's the strongest climber, and they're always in front. And the weakest climber is always in the middle, which happened to be me, just due to the fact that it was my first time up the mountain, and of course I was just recently out of the hospital. And then, of course, The last guy in the rope is the anchor man, and he's basically there to help if somebody starts falling. You're going to basically self-arrest and hope to God that everything sticks. So we're making our way across Ingraham Flats Glacier. It's pitch black. You can hardly see left or right. You look right. Your headlamp just disappears into the darkness as you try to look down along some ridge or something you're walking along, and it's a little unnerving. And you're going from rock to ice on these crampons. And I always tell people it's like you're walking in stilettos, which I haven't done, but I would just imagine it's like walking in stilettos because you got these, 2-inch, steel prongs. You're trying to balance on top of this loose rock and it's shifting and, you're trying not to sprain your ankle. And then even the ice is sometimes breaks and you punch through, or sometimes you're you'll slip a little bit every now and then, even with the crampons on. So we're making our way across Ingraham Flats Glacier, and it is a sort of a dangerous spot because you're walking over. There could be crevasses below you that are covered by snow that you can't see, and then just above you was the ice field or the ice wall. And so they're basically huge towers of seracs, which are basically just ice formations they're like pillars, and they could fall over at any time, or a piece could break off and just come right down your way and just crush you.
I am very excited to introduce to you our new sponsor, Vincero Collective. If you don't know who Vincero is, they're a premium lifestyle brand in San Diego that carries watches, sunglasses, and a ton more stuff. It's for men and women of any style, and you know what? It's really cool because they give back to the planet. They have been carbon neutral since 2019. They invest in renewable energy and forestry. It's the stuff I wear when I want to look a little nicer than usual. We can get pretty grungy here on the Adventure Sports Podcast, but when you need to clean it up a little bit, look nice for something, go out. This is the brand. This is who you wear, Vincero. I got a couple products from them, some sunglasses and whatnot, and I just absolutely love them. I will be wearing them this weekend when I go to a pretty important event. So I'm excited to kind of bust those out. A little bit classier than what I'm used to, which I'm looking forward to. Don't just take my word for it. They got 30,000 5-star reviews, which is crazy. It's been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, all that. So if you want to try some and check it out, they're giving us a 15% discount on anything in their store using the code ASP at vincerocollective.com/ASP, and that's VINCERO collective.com/ASP.
Let's make a toast to doing more this spring. Actually, let's make two. Introducing two delicious new toasts from Dunkin'. Hummus and roasted tomato, and avocado and roasted tomato. Spring it on with creamy hummus or savory avocado spread on sourdough bread topped with slow-roasted, perfectly seasoned vine-ripe tomatoes. Actually, let's make a third toast to the two toasts I was just talking about. Here's to you two, tasty tomato-topped toasts. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer.
Knock you into a crevasse. And so as we keep ascending the mountain, Ingraham Flats Glacier is around 11,000 feet. And as you keep ascending, it keeps, of course, getting colder. And the goal is you want to be at the summit right as the sun's coming up, because you want everything frozen in place while you're climbing. Enjoy the sunrise, I should say, have a little bit of food, and then cruise on back down. Well, one of the big things that we were focusing on was going slow and doing what's called compression breathing, which not everybody does, because 50% of all attempts to summit Rainier fail due to altitude sickness and weather. So the weather was sort of in our favor, and of course altitude sickness could come to anybody. It doesn't matter how fit you are or what your age is. The compression breathing is where you're trying to force that extra air into the pores of your lungs to help increase the oxygen blood saturation. It's probably something that you guys could look up on YouTube, I suppose. But so we were basically doing that. And as we kept climbing and ascending, we would sort of increase the amount of compression breathing that we were doing. And then we got to what's called Disappointment Cleaver, which didn't realize how dangerous this spot was, but things kept getting more and more dangerous as we kept moving along. So Disappointment Cleaver is basically a loose rock face that you're zigzagging up, and you have to what's called short rope. That's where instead of the lead climber in front being 50 feet ahead of me, and then of course the anchor man behind me being about 50 feet behind me, giving you that sort of reaction time to pick up if someone were to start sliding, you would short rope. So you're taking these coils up over your chest, and you're basically about 5 feet apart from each other as you're sort of walking along with your ice axe and your summit pack and your crampons and sort of stumbling on all this loose rock. Well, the path itself is about a foot wide, and again, it's still dark, and the winds are picking up a little bit, and off to your right-hand side is about a 3,000-foot drop. And if one of the guys were to fall, he's basically going to yank you and then yank the other guy, and you're done. So you have huge trust in your climbing partners on that. And it's just a very dangerous part of the climb. And we wanted to get off that spot as quick as we could, but we wanted to do it as safe as we could. And not only are you worried about just falling over the edge there, but you have loose rock that's falling above you. So you're quite concerned about, any sort of rock coming and striking you or, making you lose your balance and falling. So once we got through that hard part and that dangerous part, we got to the top of Disappointment Cleaver, and the sun had started to rise because we were going so slow. At that point, we were right around probably 12,500 feet, and we still had to gain another 2,000 feet because the summit being right around 14,400 feet, we still had quite a bit of ways to go. And it's just slow going. And so, you're constantly trying to determine, okay, well, it being sunrise right now, how much more time will it take us to gain 2,000 feet? How much time on the summit? And then, of course, we got to come back down. And so you're just trying to make all those decisions because it wasn't something I was particularly concerned about, but those snow bridges you cross when the sun's down, the snow weakens as soon as the sun hits it. And those snow bridges that you're crossing on the way up could collapse on the way down. So that's stuff that we were, trying to consider. And, we were basically following the same trail all the other guided services were following and basically making our slow zigzag up the mountain. I would say when we got to about 13,000 feet, I was pretty dead tired and I just wanted to quit. I didn't really want to go anymore. The winds had picked up. They were about 30 miles an hour at this point. Keep in mind, when we left the valley at 85 degrees the day prior, it was probably closer to 20 degrees now with 30-mile-an-hour winds. So there was definitely a wind chill factor. At that point, we were getting our puffy jackets out and just trying to get a little bit warmer because you're still pretty warm as you're moving. But if you stop for a second, you're going to cool down really quick. And we had got the puffies on, ate a quick bite, drank some water. That's the other main thing is altitude sickness suppresses appetite and thirst. So you constantly want to force yourself to eat and drink water. And so I was doing that, just kind of following along with the instructions. And we kept climbing. And, I was just dead tired. And George, he had only made it to about 12,500 feet on his first attempt before he got altitude sickness. So we were pretty happy. No one was really feeling any signs of altitude sickness. We continued our compression breathing, making our way on up. And I think we got to right around 14,000 feet. And I think at that time, I told Jeff, I turned to him, we were stopped for another break. The wind was picking up again, even more, probably 35 mile an hour at this point, maybe 40, and even colder out. And it was later in the day too. At this point, it was probably 9 a.m. And there was already guided tours going back down the mountain. And so I told him, I don't really care about summiting. This was a great trip. I enjoyed it. But I'm ready to go back down. This is just a grind and a half, and I've done some very extensive workouts. I did crew men's rowing in college, and we were just beat to death in that. So this really, I think, took the spot for probably the hardest thing I had done, just because of probably lack of training physically, and of course, just the elements that you're facing up there. So Jeff's like, no, look, we can keep going. We're almost there. Let's just go another, 100 yards. And so we get up, we walk another 100 yards, and we lay down, and we're like, we're done. And he was the leader, I'll tell you that. He just kept pressing us on, saying, look, we're almost there. And I couldn't believe it. We finally get to the crater rim, and I was just ecstatic. I was like, okay, good, we made it, awesome. I'm hungry, I'm completely exhausted, I'm thirsty. So Jeff's like, all right, let's sit down right behind some of these rocks here in the crater, tuck out of the wind. and eat some food. So we started doing that, and I took my glove off for just like maybe 2 seconds just to get, I don't know, a zipper open or something. And God, my hand froze. Put my glove back on, and it took like 10 minutes to get that hand warmed back up. And I was quickly realizing how dangerous and what an extreme condition we were in, because at that point, being at the crater rim, if for some reason you couldn't get back down the mountain, I mean, if you were struggling being hot from, climbing and trying to stay hot, I should say, if you had to stay overnight up there, I don't know if you'd make it unless you had a shelter and your sleeping bag and all that stuff. And of course, you're only going up for the day, so you leave all that at base camp. So probably something I would bring again. I'd probably bring a sleeping bag if I ever went to the summit again, just for survival, caution. But man, I couldn't imagine making it overnight up there. Well, we're at the crater rim, and I thought we had done it, but we didn't. Jeff said, hey, the highest point of the mountain is actually across the crater rim. So we have to traverse the center of the crater. And I was like, Jeff, well, how much time is that? And how long is that? Like, I'm already dead tired, And he says, it's about a quarter-mile traverse through the center. And you get to the other crater wall on the other side. And then it's about another 400 feet elevation gain, I think, from there to the actual true highest point of the mountain. So, we're all roped in at this point still. And I think what we ended up doing was we ended up dropping our packs and our rope, because you didn't have to be roped in on the crater. And we start walking through the center of the mountain, and I just was in awe. I'm like, I thought that this was like a hump, like you get to the top of the mountain, but sure enough, no, it's a volcano. And I'm walking through the center of this mountain, and I just couldn't believe it. And it was just amazing. And there's no wind in there, and you see little steam vents here and there of because it's sort of all active. And we're just walking our way to the other side, and they had the summit registry there, and it was in the sun. And we met another group there, and took some pictures and signed in. And then we made our trek up to the true summit. And at this point, I'm like just grinding right now. And I just couldn't believe I was still going up. And we get to the summit, and it was about 45-mile-an-hour winds, and it was probably 13 degrees out. So I don't know what that converts to for wind chill factor.
That's darn cold.
It was very cold. We took, I don't know, maybe 5 photos at the summit before our cameras froze. And I think we spent maybe 5 minutes at the true summit, and then we headed back down to basically where the summit registry was. Kind of hung out there for another 30 minutes, talked to another group that was sort of coming up. And then we went back to the other crater rim at the other side, traversed back through the volcano, and got our gear back. And we were basically ready for our descent at that point. I think it was around 11 a.m. at this time, and I was still kind of concerned because it had taken us, if you figure from, say, probably around 1:30 in the morning to, I don't know, we reached the summit around maybe 10 in the morning, 9 or 10. So that's a long time. We were really going slow. So if we were going just to slow down, that was going to be problematic because the snow would have been on the sun would have been on the snow basically all day.
Right.
As we do our descent. And so basically we get our gear on, and I knew a lot of accidents, disasters start on the descent because you're already fatigued. And believe me, when I realized I was at the summit and I had just spent all that time and all that energy to get to the summit, and I looked down and I was like, well, hell, I have to go all the way down. Nobody's carrying me down. I was just pretty devastated because the amount of energy I just expanded, I didn't even know if I had that much in my reserve tank. So I was a little worried. You're drinking your water bottles in your pack, but it's basically frozen water almost. The guys didn't really want to stop to try to tuck away and melt more snow or heat water up. We just wanted to get off the mountain. So we all decided we were going to go slow and steady. And the main thing is you want to make sure that a slip doesn't turn into a slide, because that could be very dangerous. It becomes harder to stop somebody and all that momentum on rope trying to self-arrest once they basically, because you just start accelerating, at any point. And, you drop one thing on that mountain, it's just going to slide down, forever, it seems like, or drop into a crevasse and you're never going to get it again. So you're you're looking down this mountain and it looks gorgeous, probably from anywhere else in Washington. But when you're up there and it's freezing and the wind's blowing and you realize you have like no energy and your water's half frozen and you have like a little bit of food left, you're really feeling the extreme environment that you're in, and you realize what you're subject to at this point. And you're making your way down, and you're starting to see things you didn't see before because, of course, it was dark the whole time. And you're walking on the snow, and the snow, of course, was frozen at one time, and now it's soft and it's slippery and it's mushy, and you're crossing these snow bridges that might be a foot wide, and there's a 200-foot crevasse underneath it,
crazy.
and the snow is starting to give way, and you're making sure every foothold counts, and it becomes progressively easier to lose your balance, when those stabilizer muscles in your legs aren't there to catch that weight shift, or the wind blows you or something, or you make a turn and you're stepping over the rope or something, and you're really alert, but at the same time there's not a whole lot you might be able to do if you do that slip. You'll give it everything you have, but it's just still you don't want that to happen. And so we're making our way down, and we get back to Disappointment Cleaver again. And the oddest thing was there was still a party of 3 working their way up the mountain.
Wow.
And we were very concerned because it was already so late in the day. Basically, no one else is going up that mountain. And if these guys had any kind of problem, they're going to have to stick it out overnight. And there wouldn't be probably any rescue until later because, it takes some time to figure out there was a problem. And it would take some time to get, climbers back up there to help. And, that was one thing that we really liked when we were climbing with, when we were kind of in the vicinity with climbing with those other guides, was if we had a problem, there's still people up on the mountain to kind of help. But at this point, they were sort of on their own, and we were sort of on our own. And we get back to Disappointment Cleaver. We're up at the top of it, and again, it was a dangerous spot. You're going down this loose rock that's falling, and the path is so small, and the drop is so great. You're just scared to death, and the whole time I'm thinking, man, like, was this smart of me to do? What if I died up here? Like, I don't know. Was that selfish of me? You start having those thoughts, and I don't know if I should have ever taken this on, or was I in the right physical condition, or and so all those thoughts are entering your mind, and your footwork becomes a lot more sloppy. I started to almost sort of roll my ankles on a lot of these loose rocks, and trying to prevent that from happening. And man, we just kept working our way down the mountain, and of course the temperature started to rise, which I was just so thankful for. I mean, it started to get in probably the 20-degree range and the 30-degree range, and you can even feel every breath you take. You can even feel like that extra oxygen as you descend lower and lower. It feels better. You feel less worried, more secure, of getting back to camp safely. And we kept working our way down, and finally we get to the bottom of Disappointment Cleaver, and you're just so thankful that extremely dangerous part of the climb's over, and now you're about to get onto more glacier and cross Ingraham Flats Glacier yet again, and be subject to the ice field yet again. And it was funny because I didn't expect it, but there was different spots on the mountain going over these glaciers that were like Everest, where they have these aluminum ladders that are anchored in, and you're walking across these aluminum ladders that are going over, say, a 40-foot crevasse or a 100-foot crevasse, and you're balancing and walking over these ladders just like in the movie, and you kind of feel like an action star at some point on that. And sometimes when you even say 40-foot crevasse, it's like, oh, that's no big deal. But it's like, okay, well, if you're on top of a 40-foot building, and that's like, okay, well, just no safety gear, just go ahead and step over to this other 40-foot building. The danger is very real, and it really kind of brings it into light, and so yeah, that's essentially what it is. You're basically stepping over a 40-foot building to another 40-foot building, or over a 200-foot building, and it is somewhat nerve-wracking, and so we did a lot of that on the Ingraham Flats Glacier, and we had some rock fall, and we had some parties in front of us that we had seen walking along the trail, and they started running because they saw some rock fall, and they couldn't see where it was, and we could, and we knew they were out of harm's way, but God, these guys are running for their lives, and it's hard to move when you're dead tired. I'll tell you that. But we finally got back to Camp Muir at, I think it was like around 5 or 6 p.m. And at this point, I was just dead tired. And I just went into my tent and into my sleeping bag, and we just decided we were going to take a little cat nap for about an hour. And then make our final descent to Paradise. Well, most people, I didn't know this yet, but most people will do the Muir climb, or I'd say Mount Rainier, they would climb it in 3 to 4 days. And some guided tours will even do 5 days. And we were trying to bag this mountain in 2 days. And, the exertion of energy and lack of sleep are all going to be elements in that sort of ambitious plan. And so we're at Camp Muir. I take my little cat nap for an hour. And, you get all unroped and out of your harness, and you strip down, and you just lay out like a limp noodle. And let's see. Jeff wakes up and he's like, all right, well, we got to get back down to the car. So we got to pack up our gear and, make some more food and whatnot. And I didn't realize this, but I was using a titanium pot because I was trying to save some weight. And I don't know if I brought kerosene fuel or white gas, but I brought, I'd say 12 and a half ounces of fuel, and it was just for myself. And Jeff and George sort of had their own camp gear, and they were kind of making all their own water, and they had all their own food. And I remember I was teasing Jeff in the beginning for bringing these Subway sandwiches and this huge bag of Snickers, and he had all this different food, and I just thought he was kind of dumb bringing all that extra weight. And, I was very planned out, and I had my emergency rations. And I'll tell you what, I ate through all my emergency rations. I had burnt all my fuel out, and I basically was down to 1 liter of water, no food, no fuel, no energy. And I think I had consumed most of that water. I was trying to ration it, but I had consumed most of that water on the descent from Muir. And the guys, Jeff and George, didn't want to take any time to get their stove out and set all that up again and make more water. And I was basically climbing down the mountain. I don't know, it was around 7 or 8 p.m. Starting to get dark again. And I was getting really dehydrated. And my feet were just killing me. And, these guys are cruising down the mountain. They wanted to get back to the car. And it was probably going to take a good 3-4 hours to get back down from Muir to Paradise. And, God, they were just zooming down the mountain. And I was just struggling, and they, I think, ended up drinking some glacier water. I was a little concerned, of course. I was just in the hospital for a week.
Oh, man.
With, I don't know whether I had Giardia or Cryptosportia or whatnot, but I definitely didn't want to entertain that option again. So I forwent the glacier water, was completely out of water, food, energy, fuel, everything. And I was just walking through the snow and fumbling around. It was getting dark out. And I got to, I think Paradise has got is a paved trail for about a mile or so. And I think when I finally got all the way down the Muir snowfield and through all these different sectors of the Muir climb, it was, I think, around 10 p.m. at night. And my feet, I couldn't walk in my boots anymore. I ended up taking my boots off, and I ended up taking my socks off. And I'm carrying this 55-pound pack. It was probably a little bit lighter than that now. With, walking barefoot, having just been subject to climbing for basically the last 40 hours. And I walked the blacktop 1 mile barefoot all the way down to the parking lot. And I couldn't believe it. We finally got down, and I just couldn't believe that's what it took. It just took everything in me, sleep deprivation and energy levels, and just my body was just falling apart. And when we got into the car, I think I just fell asleep. I got home probably around midnight, got to bed around 1, and I think I slept the entire next day. And then I scheduled a massage, I think, on Tuesday. And I didn't work all week, I don't think. And my other buddies, they went back to work, and then we got all our pictures together, and we met at a bar, and we exchanged photos, and we just, it was just an experience and a half. And, the summit, I still, to this day, I could care less that I summited. It was more about the preparation, climbing, trusting, your other, members in the party, and just the experience up and the experience down. And, utilizing all your gear and your knowledge. That's really what it was for me. And of course, every time, people are like, "Oh, you climbed Rainier?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You summited?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like I don't really care if they ever ask if I summited, but I guess that's fun to have that in the bag as well. But that is the Rainier story. It was very dangerous. It was very hard, and wow, I don't know. That was a tough one.
Yeah, beautiful narrative. I didn't want to jump in there because you were just taking us through it step by step. And, that story, I think, gives people more of an appreciation for what the big mountaineering is really like. And thanks for all the detail. I was there with you the whole way. That was great. I do want to do Rainier. I don't think I want to do it as fast as you did. You guys were tromping around for really 24 hours.
Yeah, it was more around 48 hours because we were climbing up Muir on day one, and we were up around 4 a.m, and then we went to bed. We tried to go to bed around 7 p.m. that day, and then we were up again at about midnight or so, and then we didn't get back down for another 24 hours. So yeah, it was more around 30, 35 hours of solid work, and that's a lot.
That is. That's. I heard from ultra distance athletes that it's not as much about the distance you cover as it is about the amount of time that you're exerting yourself. So some people are faster than others, but in the end, if everyone goes 24 hours, that's exhausting. I mean, that's the equivalent of doing multiple marathons. So
it was. And you're talking, so marathons are typically flat or whatnot, but then you add weight to that, and then you add incline to that, and that was the other thing. I only calculated burning 6,000 calories a day, and when I found out later in a mountaineering book, you typically can burn up to 12,000. I was like, well, that's where my food went.
And the water thing, man, I did a episode recently on climbing Parnassus this winter, and I got dehydrated because my water froze.
Yeah,
it was just my own lack of experience again. My water froze, and so I ended up being 11 hours on 1 liter of water.
Oh, jeez.
And on the way down, I mean, I was there with you when you were talking about that. On the way down, my blood got so thick that it wasn't delivering oxygen to my muscles anymore correctly. You're panting for air, and you say, what's wrong with me? And you realize, well, the blood's just not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought, but that's what happens. They say... I forget what the stat is, but just a little bit of dehydration can impact your performance by a very large percentage.
Yeah, I think it's when you become 2% dehydrated, it impacts your fitness by like 30% or more.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's
really basically when you have the urge of feeling thirsty, you're already 2% dehydrated. Yeah. And so. And I'll tell you what, drinking ice cold water when you're thirsty is a horrible experience, especially when you're cold. Like the last thing you want to do is try to just gobble down just ice cold water when you're cold. You'd rather just, have some warm water or tea or something. But, and then of course, when you're walking, you hear all this running water in the glacier, just teasing you, Ugh.
Yeah.
I can sympathize for you there with the, being dehydrated, definitely.
Well, the funny thing is I've climbed a lot of mountains in the wintertime, and I've done it in very cold conditions, but I'd never had a water bottle freeze. So it had something to do with how my pack didn't insulate as well as what I had used previously, or something. So I was just really surprised. But the water froze, and that was that. And that's a kind of unexpected thing that can happen. So
yeah.
Anyway, beautiful story about Rainier, John. I appreciate you sharing that with me and with our listeners. Man, you took us there, so thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of photos, and we got a video we made, so I mean, if I could post some of those, but yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, definitely is just way more dangerous than I thought. Just going up a mountain and coming back down, there was just so many elements of danger.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, isn't it?
It is. I hear people, oh yeah, I climbed it. Okay, well, that's really all you hear. You don't really hear about going over ladders and the crevasses and the fall and the darkness and the wind and the cold. That kind of gets left out, I think. So trying to add that back in.
Well, it's important that people realize it's not for the faint of heart. It's not a small one. So that's cool.
No, exactly.
Well, John, we have a lot of other things that I would like to ask you here, but we're also running short on time, so maybe we can have you back on again to talk more about what drives you and how you incorporate adventure into your life and why you do the things that you do like this. But will you close this out with an inspirational story? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh man, that's the one I left blank. I don't know. I don't know. I would just say this, that I look around and especially at the youth, and I'm 32, so I count myself as young. But when I say youth, I mean any kid that's capable of playing outside or playing video games. And when I see a lot of kids just in the video game world and just on Facebook and doing all this sort of just tied into the technology, it just I just have such an appreciation to get outside and just to be in nature, playing with my two kids and kind of taking them into that lifestyle, because I don't know how beneficial video games are for people, but I just feel refreshed anytime I come back from a trip. I feel tired, I guess, from physical exertion, but I feel refreshed mentally. And, that's something that I want to be able to give to my kids. And, that's what I like to do in my spare time. And so I just hope that, whatever my kids pick, I hope that they would still enjoy, going out into the woods or into the mountains or hiking along a river or sailing, doing anything outdoors with me and my wife.
Yeah. Parents, I hope you heard that. Get your kids out. It's okay for them to live in a technology world like we do, but we can't let that replace touching nature. I mean, there have been entire books written on nature deficit disorder with children and how important it is. And episode 40 with Bruno Lutz, I have to mention that one for any of you who have kids and you want to know what's a good way to incorporate them into an outdoor lifestyle and some adventure sports. Listen to that one. And thanks for that reminder, John. It matters. It matters to get out, reconnect with nature, and it does rejuvenate the mind, and it makes your body healthier too, even if you are tired. So, yeah, good words, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, John, thanks again for being on the show. If people want more information, is there a way that they could contact you?
I would say the easiest way would probably to send me an email to jdmcorp@hotmail.com. They can definitely shoot me any questions they have there.
So that's JD as in David, M as in Mary, corp@hotmail.com.
Correct.
Cool, John. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kurt. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And to all of our listeners out there, until the next show, do get out there and have some fun and take your kids with you.
Definitely.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
It used to be hard to find the exact auto parts you needed, and that meant spending a lot of time at swap meets. It's a different game now when you can order exactly what you need from eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts, so you can always find the right fitment. Spend less time searching and more time building with the eBay Motors app, or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.